Strange, but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. That's the way I've opened our videos since we started. And while we haven't done many lighthearted pieces, we haven't really delved too deeply into the dark side either. Until this video, that we're calling The Entity and the Hunter. This story was submitted to Strange But True by a woman who did not want to be identified or even associated in any way with this story, taking steps to mask her identity and of those involved. All the names in the story I'm about to tell have been changed. In presenting this story to us, it was obvious that even though many years had elapsed since this encounter, the terror was still very real. The memory of the events and of one person in particular still haunt her, and she told us even if we didn't use it, it provided an avenue to release some of the tension of holding this story in for so many years, and to allow others who may have encountered similar events to know they aren't crazy. Of course, this woman's strange but true story was too good to not share. It was May of 2000 in St. Louis, Missouri. I was dating this guy named Jack. Jack and I had gone over to my friend Brenda's house. She said she was having some weird things happen around the house that she was renting. Originally, it was going to be her and her boyfriend's house, but they split up after only a few weeks of living there together. She said she would keep the place and took his name off the lease. She seemed really rattled on the phone, but wouldn't tell me what was wrong. So Jack agreed to go with me to her house. We showed up at around 8:30 that night. It's an old brick building. St. Louis is full of them. Tall wooden frame windows, big front porch that looked out onto the street. Anyway, I guess Brenda heard us pull up and she met us at the bottom of the steps of her front porch. I had forgotten to tell her I was bringing Jack. She pulled me aside and asked me what he was doing here. I told her that because she didn't tell me exactly what was going on, I figured we could use a guy around just in case. After calming her about Jack's presence, she sat us down on the porch steps and began telling us what happened. She said it started about a week before. She would hear noises in the basement at night. At first, she thought it was just rats or something. Lots of those in the city. Hell, it could have been stray cats as well. After 2 nights of this, she went downstairs during the day because it seemed like the noises were getting louder from one night to the next. She had bought some mouse traps and poison to spread around the basement. She turned the light on at the top of the stairs, which were at the end of the hall, just next to the kitchen. She went down the stairs and turned on the light at the bottom. She said that she had a weird feeling while she was down there, but she brushed it off as just that old, creepy basement vibe. She finished placing the traps and made her way back to the bottom of the steps. Before going back up, she stopped to make sure the cellar door that opened to the backyard was locked. It was. The thing had 3 padlocks on the inside and a board that slid into place for extra protection. Now, let me explain. That cellar door led to steps that came down from the backyard to a heavy oak door that led into the basement. The oak door had 2 deadbolt locks and a 2x4 that slid in place to secure it, just like the cellar door. The point is, nothing could get into that basement. The 3 windows that were in the basement were all at ground level outside, which put them slightly below the ceiling in the basement. Each window had 2 sliding bolt locks on the inside and a weird metal guard around the outside. I guess it was to keep snow and rainwater from leaking in through the window and flooding the basement. Now, I know this basement sounds ridiculously well secured, but this is in South St. Louis, and to be honest, it's not the safest neighborhood. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent about the structure of the house. I just don't want to leave anything out. So after checking the doors, she turned to face the stairs and got this sudden feeling of someone being behind her. She said it was like that feeling of impending doom. She never turned around to look. She just ran for the stairs, ran up the stairs, slammed the door behind her, never once looking back. She said the whole time she was running, she could feel something behind her, but never heard a sound. She locked the door and sat at the kitchen table. She opened a bottle of vodka and poured herself a drink. Later that night, she went to bed, and as she laid down, she heard walking around upstairs. Here's the problem with that. No one was up there. Brenda had a 9-year-old son whose room was upstairs, but he was on vacation with her parents and wouldn't be back for another 2 weeks. She was supposed to be alone in the house. She refused to go up there, but grabbed a baseball bat from next to her bed and walked to the bottom of the stairs. There's a door there that opens to the stairs, but the lock on it was broken. She closed the door and pushed a china cabinet up against it. She turned on every light on the first floor and sat up the rest of the night. When morning hit, she finally felt safe and fell asleep. This went on for a few days, and her co-workers began to notice she wasn't looking so well. So her boss told her to take a few days off. She went home and tried to watch some television, but one of her unicorn figurines on top of the TV fell to the floor and shattered. She figured it was just due to traffic on the street, and continued watching TV. She said after an hour or two, another figurine fell off the TV. Insanity began to set in, and she said she actually screamed at the house, "What the hell do you want?" At that moment, another unicorn came off the TV. This one didn't just slide off onto the floor. It flew across the room at her. That's when she called me. Now that we had an idea of what she felt was going on, we decided to go inside. Jack is one of those, "I'm the man, I'll handle this" kind of guys. I'm thinking, if what she is saying is true, what the hell are you going to do, punch it? We walked in to see the broken figurines and all of the lights on. Jack did a walkthrough of the house and found nothing. We sat in her bedroom, which was oddly between the living room and kitchen. I noticed this setup in a lot of houses and apartments in St. Louis. Never could figure out why. So about an hour or two goes by and nothing happens. I'm sitting on the end of the bed and Brenda is laying across the middle of the bed. Jack is sitting on a love seat across from the bed. I just so happen to look over at Jack, and he is staring toward the kitchen. To be more precise, the hallway floor that went from the bedroom past the bathroom to the kitchen. I looked down to see what he was looking at, and screamed at the top of my lungs. A red ball, you know, the cheap bouncy one you get at like Walmart or Target, was slowly rolling down the hallway. It got to the end of the hallway, turned around the corner, and rolled up the adjacent hallway towards the basement door. Jack asked to use my phone. I said, sure. He said he was calling a friend of his who had some experience with this stuff. So Jack made the call, and about 30 minutes later his friend showed up. His name was Tommy, and we told Tommy what had happened from beginning until now. He said this was well beyond his expertise, but he'd be willing to stay the night and see what happened. It's like this thing had a system, because about 2 hours after Tommy got there, we heard the sounds in the basement. This time, it sounded like someone banging around. Brenda said it was louder than ever before, and we all thought for sure someone was down there. Jack grabbed Brenda's bat, and Tommy grabbed a broom of all things, and they went to go check it out. Brenda and I stood at the top of the stairs. As Jack took the first steps down, he stopped. "Shh! Do you hear that?" he asked in a whispered voice. We all nodded yes. "That's voices," he proclaimed again in a whisper. It was voices, almost like chanting. I'm not going to lie. Hearing those voices was the first time in my life I have ever been so scared that I feared for my life. Jack and Tommy crept down the stairs, despite our pleading with them not to. Jack reached up and pulled the string for the light at the bottom of the stairs. The moment it came on, the voices stopped. Taking a quick look around, the guys did not see anything. Then they suddenly just started running up the stairs. Halfway up the stairs, the light at the bottom, I don't know how you say it other than to say it exploded. They pushed their way through the door and slammed it shut. Tommy locked it as Jack pushed the kitchen table against it. At this point, I am somewhere between, this has to be a prank of some kind, and get me the hell out of here. A few seconds later, both the kitchen door leading to the second floor and the one leading to the basement started banging, as though someone was trying to break through it. Jack said to hell with this and called the police. He told them he wasn't sure if it was someone that had broken in or someone playing a really bad prank, but that they were all afraid for their lives. The cops said they would send someone and not to wait in the house. So we told them we would wait at the grocery store a block away and walk up when we saw them. 2 hours later, they showed up and checked the house. Not to anyone's surprise, no one was there. The cops were sure it was just someone playing a prank, and if they came back, to call them, but don't leave. Just lock ourselves in the bathroom or something, because the pranksters probably left after we did. We knew calling them would do no good, but it was an avenue we had to try. It was about 6 a.m., and we knew we needed to figure something out. Jack said he was close with the priest at his church, and after a few more hours, he called him, and the priest came right over. The priest listened to our stories while we all sat out front. I had a strange feeling that Tommy and the priest knew each other, though they never had said as much. I figured it was just because Tommy and Jack were friends, so maybe they went to the same church. Tommy was Italian. He didn't seem like the church-going type, but I figured, maybe for holidays or something. None of us wanted to go back in that house. We needed to figure something out. The priest said he would walk through the house and cleanse it. He began reciting prayers as he walked through the door. It wasn't 2 minutes later. The priest ran out of the house and slammed the door behind him. He looked at Tommy. "Do you still know how to reach him?" he asked. Tommy replied, "Yeah, but I think he retired." At that moment, something flew against the door and shattered. The priest looked at Tommy. "Call him." I asked who they were talking about, and they just kept saying not to worry. Tommy told Brenda not to worry. He was going to get someone to take care of this. About 6 o'clock that night, Tommy showed up with this tall, skinny guy, the one I call Hunter. He had long black hair and piercing blue eyes. He was dressed all in black. He nodded to everyone as he walked up. He asked whose house it was, and Brenda said it was hers. He asked for permission to have a look around. She said sure. He walked in and told us to wait. As he entered the living room through the front door, a figurine flew across the room, shattering on the far wall. Then one flew directly at him, and in one of those cool, I'm a badass moments, he caught it and asked, "Really? Is that all you got?" As he stepped in further, the front door slammed shut. Now I know how crazy all of this sounds, but this really and truly did happen. A few minutes went by, and he comes back to the door. He seems just as calm as when he first arrived. He said we all needed to come inside and that he would simply observe the first night to see what he was dealing with, then take care of it the following night. That night, we witnessed more activity than we had ever seen up to that point. As we sat in the living room, we heard the banging upstairs and downstairs. Then, something new. We heard something clawing at some wood in the bedroom. Hunter asked if Brenda had a cat, which she didn't. He walked into the bedroom and discovered it was coming from the closet. Jack suggested we open it and see what it was, but Hunter said no. Let it come out on its own. So at this point, we are all sitting in the bedroom. After a while, we started to chat, trying to ignore the occasional banging and random scratching. Hunter made a comment that he hates masks, referring to the 3 Asian-style masks Brenda had hanging on her wall. "Why?" Brenda asked. "I think they're beautiful." Hunter just smiled. They are. But in situations like this, you never want an entity to have a face other than its own. Brenda looked puzzled. I asked what he meant. He told everyone to move to the bed and look at the masks, which hung on the wall behind the love seat. Hunter walked to the living room and turned out the light, then turned off the hallway lights and the bedroom light and told us to look at the masks. It took about 30 seconds for us all to notice it, but the eyes of the mask on the far left, closest to the closet, were glowing. Tommy looked at Hunter and referenced how creepy that was, and that a second earlier he thought it was breathing on him, but figured it was just the central air or something. Brenda told Tommy she didn't have central air, didn't have central heating either. Air conditioner in a window of each room and a radiator in each room. Tommy grabbed his trusty broom and knocked the mask from the wall. Hunter laughed and turned the light back on, grabbed the other 2 masks off the wall, and set them on the dresser, face down. That's when I saw my first, whatever it was, run across the living room very fast. It came from the area of the front door and ran toward the wall that would be behind the closet. I was so scared I couldn't make a sound. Hunter asked what was wrong, but I couldn't answer. Then he sat down next to me, which honestly I don't remember him doing, and he placed 2 fingers to my right temple and said, "Shh." That's all it took, and I was at ease again. Daylight came and everything stopped. Light coming through the tall windows of the house gave us all a sense of serenity. Hunter went and opened the closet and saw the inside of the door had these huge scratch marks all over it. He asked to look through the closet, and Brenda said sure, so we did. It didn't take him long to find a small knife with a wooden blade on the floor of the closet behind some shoe boxes. Hunter asked who it belonged to, and she said it was probably her ex's. She asked why that was important, and he showed her a handmade etching in the blade. It was a circle with some lines inside that all ended in little circles. He said it was the symbol of an ancient god that a lot of cultists now pray to as a type of demon. I wish I could remember the name. It sounded really weird, like Nero or Nib-Nib, something like that. I'm not sure anymore. Hunter then asked where the ex spent most of his time. Brenda said, "You know, now that I think of it, he was in the basement a lot, but I figured he was just unpacking and whatnot." So, as I'm sure you can guess, it was down to the basement that we went. It wasn't long before we found a giant version of that same symbol as was on the knife, carved into Brenda's basement floor. There were also symbols on the walls, something about earth, air, fire, and water. Those weren't the words he used, but he told us what they meant. He said it looked like the ex was trying to perform some sort of ritual, with either Brenda, her son, or both being a target of the ritual. He said he had good news and bad news. The good news was not only was the ex gone, but he was also a complete moron. The symbols were not drawn right and were slightly off in their positioning. The ritual never would have worked. The bad news was that in attempting to perform the ritual and having no clue what to do, he must have caught the attention of a dark entity from the area and drew it in. We went upstairs and began getting the house ready. We used paper bags from the local grocer to cover the windows to block all outside light. Not wanting to put any more marks on Brenda's home, he wrote down some symbols on pieces of paper, one for each of the first floor doors, front, back, basement, and upstairs. He attached a piece of tape to each sheet of paper, then gave a different one to each of us. He told us when he said, "Now," to place our sheets on the respective doors, with the symbol facing inwards. As night fell, the activity reached a boiling point. Then, all the lights went out, and the closet door opened. It was really damn dark in there, almost no light at all. but we heard the door open, and then we saw it walk out. I don't know what it was, but it was huge. A lot of houses in St. Louis have really high ceilings, and this one was no exception. I would guess 12 feet high. And this blob of darkness exiting the closet that was so dark you could see it moving against the blackness of the room was about a foot shy of the ceiling. Hunter yelled, "Now!" and we all ran to place our cymbals. Hunter began chanting something like, "Diner Cool Baba Wee," or something. Again, it was a long time ago. Then, after saying that quite a few times, he said a really long verse that I am not even going to try and remember. And then, it was gone, and the lights came back. Nothing ever happened again after that night. Hunter had carved small, barely noticeable symbols over every door and window from top to bottom. Brenda lived there another 3 years with no strangeness of any kind, thankful that her son never had to experience any of that. I spoke with him last summer. He's in college now at a local university on the west side. He's taking a psychology class and was telling me about a paper they had to write about dreams and dreaming, and how he wrote about recurring dreams he had as a child, where this creature would chase him, and then a tall, skinny guy with long hair and glowing blue eyes would show up and chase the creature away. We laughed. Brenda had never told him the truth about what had happened, so I saw no need to mention it. The reason I'm writing this now is that a girl I work with here in Oklahoma named Rhonda grew up in St. Louis. We were talking about the old days growing up there, and she asked if I believed in ghosts and spirits and stuff. I simply told her that I feel like most people have at least one event in their life they can't explain. She said, "Yeah, I had a few times like that when I was young. Thankfully, I had this friend named Hunter, only she used his actual name, that helped me through it." I asked her if he fit the description of my Hunter, and she said he did as he got older, but they were only 10 when he helped her. Then I realized this guy was at least 20 to 24 when he helped Brenda. That means he was doing this for more than a decade. People like this should be thanked. And I never really got to, 'cause after it was over, he was gone. I never saw him again. So I sent you this email as a way to hopefully get the word to him that we are so very thankful for what he did, that I hope he's doing well in life, and that he needs to know he really does touch people in a way that can't be described. It's not an obsession or anything, but you never forget those eyes, or that half-cocked grin, or the feeling of safety you get from just being near him. If you are out there, Hunter, thank you. This has been another strange but true story. The writer of this encounter gave us 2 specific details about the man she called Hunter in this story that she asked us to withhold. She gave us the real name of the man and a very distinctive feature that would make him identifiable. If you have had an encounter similar to this and were helped by the man she called Hunter, tell us of your encounter and pass along the 2 identifying pieces of information via email at strangebutTrueStories2@gmail.com. If it matches, we will share your story in a future episode. If you like this video, leave us a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to those who have. We appreciate the support. I'm Steve White. Thanks for watching. Until next time.